Hey everyone, I'm your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and today I have an incredible expert coming to the stage on Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Miss Sheila is here on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. She has 25 years of experience in brand development and transformation, global loyalty program management, loyalty strategy, loyalty marketing, partnership marketing, business development, CRM, and integrated marketing across B2B, B2C, and Disney, JP Morgan, and everything in between. And she is here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage today to help us take our business, your business, my business, to the next level. And we are going to get a little bit into her story, see how she got to where she is today, and help break the mold and help us do business better and market and advertise and keep our clients, not just gain new clients, but keep our clients with some client retention skills. So without further ado, I can't hold this lady back anymore. Please help me welcome to the stage the incredible Miss Sheila Butler.
What an intro. That's a fantastic. Are you kidding me?
That is all you. One more round of applause for Miss Sheila. You are phenomenal, ma'am. Your resume is extensive, and you have been helping businesses, helping people take back their strength and their energy and take back their share in the market and help serve customers and clients throughout the United States and the world. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. What a privilege.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Diving in, I want to start with a curveball. I want to start soft and work my way up to the crescendo. And so I wanted to know, when did you realize you had the gift? When you had the gift for teaching and coaching and helping businesses succeed and win? When did it all start for you? When did it stick out for you?
You know, it's so funny because I was thinking about this the other day. So I learned branding at Disney. So I was working for Disney Parks and Resorts, and they were introducing brand management and the point of difference and brand promise as they were rolling out a fourth park and the cruise line business. And so it was like this, it was getting like a Harvard MBA in branding at Disney as they were rolling it out. And then I left Disney and I found myself at a tech startup, and I was hire number 20 or 30, and the company folded at hire like 63 or something. But I found myself going from this giant marketing organization that had 100 people to being the director of brand strategy for this small tech startup, and realizing that I didn't know half of what I thought I knew. I was working within this big protected group of 100 other people that I could go and ask questions. And then suddenly I'm the brand expert. And so I found myself teaching and learning as I taught. So we would do things like pizza and beer night, and anyone within the company was invited. And so we would have these whiteboards and we would say, okay, let's talk about, how do you build out a product? How do you decide on your target audience? What is a target audience? How do you build out the benefits and pricing and all these different marketing principles? And so I would buy beer and pizza, and the tech developers who are building out the websites on the back end are learning about branding and how you create a brand and an experience and expectation within your customer base. And then that needs to be seen through in the UX of the website and how people navigate the website. So what I learned is I didn't know as much as what I thought I did, but I learned a lot because I was teaching other people. So I had to really dig in. And that was a huge growth opportunity for me. And then, you know, we're all in this state of continuous learning. So you learn as you go along. You learn with every misstep, and you learn with every right step that you make in your career.
Absolutely. This is profound, and this is absolutely necessary. What, and I know you started with Disney. Anything unique about Disney that you learned, because Disney is a major monster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then going from Disney to now leading, you are the expert, right? To the next agency, you are the expert. What did you learn from your time in Disney? Anything that stuck out to you about marketing that most businesses don't even realize is significant?
Yeah, a couple things. Well, so one, their approach to brand management. Another one was they had this thing called Mega, and it was every Tuesday, and everyone's calendar was blocked out. You could not have a meeting on your calendar. It was held out for Mega. Mega was a mega meeting to where every 15 minutes, new marketing collateral, emails, brochures, videos, TV commercials were being reviewed by the three heads of marketing and advertising. And so there was an in house creative team that would come in and present the creatives for feedback. And then, like, maybe I'm working on the cruise line business. And so I'm one of the clients and I'm also giving my feedback on the creative. So every 15-minute blocks, this is how much marketing they were pumping out back in the 90s. So the reason why I bring this up is they realize there's an issue sitting in Mega. So people are sitting there as either the client or presenting the marketing creatives. And then the dialogue about the creative ended up being not, is this the right tone for the commercial? It was more like, well, but who's our target audience? And are these the right benefits that we should be talking about? And so what the realization was is that we needed to have a clear marketing input strategy document. So we called it MIR. It's called Marketing Input Review. So that ended up being the day before Mega, the week before you were going to see your creative, or 2 weeks before, to where that marketing input review session was a strategic discussion to say, these are my business objectives and goals. Here's my target audience. Here's what I know about them. Here's what's important to them. Here's what's motivating to them. Here are the benefits that I think meet their needs and desires, and anything else that you need to know from a strategy perspective. And then, because you had that roadmap documented, when you went into Mirror and you saw the creative being presented, you then were more aligned with, does this deliver on the strategy that we laid out in the first place? And then you can just argue then the merits of the creative itself.
Ooh, I like this. I like this. You know why I love this show? I love, cause I get to be selfish and I get to pick the brain of experts and professionals like Miss Butler. That's good. This is good. What can you share with us about brand loyalty? And let's start off baby steps. What does brand loyalty mean to you, Miss Sheila? And you teach to your clients and you coach this. What does brand loyalty mean in today's hyper saturated market? Because the competitive scope is big, right? The trying to stand out against everyone else is very hard. So, what does brand loyalty mean to you?
So to me, brand loyalty is making an emotional connection with your customer base and caring for that like it's your own personal relationship. And so let me give you an example of my consumer behavior when I was testing myself and how I behave. So I used to live in a Philadelphia suburb, and there were three different sort of medium-sized chain restaurants within like a 2-mile radius. So I joined all three of their loyalty programs, and then I assessed how I behaved based upon their marketing to me. So one was a pizza chain. And so I had shared my email address for benefits within the program. They didn't actually have like a real rewards program of spend this and get X number of points or bucks or whatever.
They did
So
not.
they did not. They did not, right? Then there was another one that is a famous Asian restaurant that had a loyalty program. So I joined theirs. And then another one was an Italian restaurant chain. So here's what I noticed. The pizza chain would send me coupons every Friday for like buy 2 pizzas and get, half off or something like that. And I didn't really take advantage of it because frankly, I knew that if I didn't do anything, I'm just going to get the coupon the next week. So that didn't make me change my behavior.
Mm.
The Asian restaurant, their perks were that they would roll out new entrees or appetizers. And if you bought 2 entrees, you would get the new thing for free. And so they weren't rolling it out on that all that often, but and but if I have someone to go with, I might go and, try the new thing. But again, wasn't really compelling me to go. The Italian restaurant had a different approach. So it was spend something like $20 and have $5 to redeem within a small window of time. And so that was more sort of value based, right? I can do the math and understand the value that I can unlock in this. But that really wasn't the thing that changed my behavior. The reason why I went to that restaurant more than the other ones is that twice a year they would throw wine dinners for the customers who spent the most money with them. And so there would be maybe 50 of us who were all invited to this luncheon or wine dinner. And it's wine pairings for 4 or 5 courses. And then they were doing some sort of charity raffle to where if you bought raffle tickets, the charity would get the benefit of that. And you were getting wine baskets and whatever your ticket number was called. I liked the fact that with that brand, I was recognized and seen and valued as demonstrated by those invitation only wine dinners. And so that to me created an emotional connection with that brand. I recognized the servers. I knew the proprietor. I felt appreciated and valued as a customer in a way that I didn't feel seen and recognized and valued at the other 2 brands. That's what changed my behavior. That's how I understood what brand loyalty is all about and building that emotional connection.
Absolutely. What I'm hearing in here is there was exclusivity, right? Only
Mhm.
so many people can get this perk from us. And
Right.
so, and almost encouraging you, you want to be at the top.
Yeah.
You want to receive these perks. You want to receive. How do you remember the emotions that you felt? Were you anxious? Were you excited to
I
be
felt,
in this?
yeah, I felt special, right? I felt like I'm getting something that other people don't. That someone sees me, Sheila, not me, the customer who's coming in for takeout or sitting down and having a quick dinner, right? It's interesting. I ran a global loyalty program after leaving Chase and all the partnerships. And same thing, we really focused on what are the set of benefits based upon the level of engagement that someone has with the brand and unlocking those things that help people feel very seen and valued and appreciated within the brand. And sometimes that's as simple as recognizing and thanking someone for their loyalty when they check into the hotel. I think that many people think that customer loyalty means I have to give a discount. And often it's not even the discount. In fact, maybe you spend zero money or a little bit of money. Do you mind if I share another story with you?
Please,
Okay.
please.
So I was a member of Kimpton's loyalty program for a long time. And Kimpton is now a brand within the IHG family. And Kimpton had their own separate loyalty program. And when it joined under IHG, eventually it became very opaque. So you wanted to be invited again to be in the inner circle, but you weren't quite sure how much you had to spend and how many different hotels you had to stay at. But you knew that there was an algorithm from the fact that it used to be transparent when Kimpton was independent and they weren't owned by IHG. So one of the benefits of being in the inner circle is that you would have an upgrade to your room. You would have a room amenity like a bottle of wine and truffle popcorn, etc. And they had this profile that you could build on their website to where you could just put in my favorite things are red wine or I like champagne and I like Diet Coke and chocolate covered caramels or truffle popcorn. And then it also had anything else we should know about you. So I thought, I'm going to test to see whether or not you guys read the profile. So I wrote Mickey Mouse and George Clooney. Okay. So I check into one of the hotels. I'm doing a little staycation in Philadelphia. So I'm going to the Palomar. And the concierge greets me and she's like, Sheila, I'm so excited. Tell me what you think about your room when you're there. I can't wait to hear about it. I'm like, okay, great. And for me, I like staying in hotels. So it's always like you open up the door and it's sort of like this moment of surprise, see like, which room am I in? What kind of view do I have? And so I walk in and I see this 4x6 framed picture of George Clooney. And I laughed right? I thought, okay, so she read my profile. That's really cool, right? So then I start to unpack and I go into the bathroom and I lay out my toiletries and I see another framed picture of George Clooney. And this one says, I see you. I'm like, okay, that's really funny, right? So then I
Wow.
turn around. I'm now like at the desk in the room, like the little writing desk. And it has another picture of George Clooney and he's holding this small little dog. And it says, I wish you were this puppy. And then the last picture, I'm glad this one was the last one I saw. The last picture is a 4x6 framed picture on the bed pillows with George Clooney, and it says, lay here with me. So I'm now busting out laughing. And I thought, wow, she like took this to the next level. So I go downstairs, I'm thanking her. It's wine hour, which is at 5 p.m. So I'm thanking her, telling her how over the top it is. And she said, I went into your LinkedIn profile and I tried to actually take your picture and superimpose it on a picture so that you could be in picture with George. And I just couldn't get it to work. And so we're just laughing about it. But you know what? She read my profile. She walked a half block away to CVS and bought 4 frames and printed out 4 things that she found on the internet with George Clooney. That was as simple as it was. It cost her maybe what, $7 to do this
Right.
for me? But I'm telling this story and it happened more than 10 years ago. So there's something in it for people to understand about sometimes it just takes a tiny little bit of effort and barely any money, if that, to make a huge emotional impact on your customers and deepen loyalty.
This is good. This is really powerful because this is absolutely necessary what brands need to hear. And you said this was happened before the integration in the ISG program. This is when it was still that personal touch, mom
Yeah.
and pop running the organization. Oh my gosh, we really need to get back to that because that's huge brand loyalty right there. I want to take it one step further with you. Can you speak to the I'm talking the Ritz Carlton level of brand loyalty. And this is something I remember reading about and hearing that Ritz Carlton empowers its associates and its employees to believe in this brand because you can't do anything without your team. Your
Right.
team have to believe in the mission of brand loyalty in order to transfer that feeling and emotion and conviction to the actual customer. And one of the things that unique that I've been trying to learn how to adopt in my businesses is Ritz Carlton empowers its employees and they give each of them a line of credit.
Mhm.
And so you fly in, Miss Butler, and say your luggage is delayed. That busboy who grabbed your met you at the door, helped you, got you some water, got some bottled water to your stateroom, and you was just sharing. Oh my gosh, I'm so frustrated. My clothes are delayed. My bag and my suitcase is delayed. And that employee now goes to the store using their company line of credit. They don't need approval from their host, their manager, leader. They can just go and buy, and they bring you the toiletries, some mouthwash, some things that you need that were probably packed in your suitcase. Can you speak to that level of brand loyalty and branding that I think we need to get back to? Can you help us?
Yes. Well, but what I will say is the training component is huge in that.
Mhm.
So it's hiring the right people that fit your brand. It's people understanding what does that level of experience, of excellence experience look like. It is very difficult for people to give that if they haven't experienced for themselves. So how do you know what great looks like versus good? So that's part of it within the training component is really helping your employees understand what does good, what does great look like, what does excellence look like. Then it's also having the right leaders in place that they are teaching their employees to read the room, scan the room, see whose water looks low, look at the expression on someone's face when they receive their entree, when they taste it for the first time. It's really being hyper aware, hyper listening, hyper emotional intelligence. I think another part is to trust your employees and to let them know that even when they're in a moment of truth and they need to make a decision and they don't have time to check in with their leader, that they know that the leader will have their back because they made a decision that airs to the benefit of the guests that you're serving.
I love that. This is powerful. This is absolutely necessary. So leaders, I love this. This is absolutely necessary. I love this kind of this is high level thinking. And a lot of brands and a lot of companies get this wrong and they mess it up all the time. So powerful, Ms. Butler. Train. You have to invest in your people. You
Mhm.
have to invest in equipping them with that comfort as their leader to know, hey, I can make this decision without my supervisor, and it's aligns with the company values, it aligns with the mission. Training, training, training. Love it, love it, love it.
And trust your employees. They're out there, they don't want to make the wrong call. They don't want to be in trouble the next day. Make it a safe environment for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you speak to the generational differences that affect loyalty behaviors? For example, Harvard alum, right? Harvard has that alum like, oh, your father's father went to Harvard. So you need this whole family has been to Harvard, right? That generational loyalty. Can you speak to the behaviors and the mindsets of what we need to be considering when it comes to that kind of level?
I think that there's a component within loyalty that is around heritage and what feels very familiar to us. It's almost like what brings your heart back home again. And, that could be loyalty with a sports team. That could be loyalty to your city. That could be loyalty to your school, right? I think that there's something ingrained in us because it was something that we were exposed to at a young, impressionable stage that stays with us. That's why families will all root for Notre Dame and everybody wants to go to Notre Dame. And because it's a part of your fabric of you. It's almost like you don't even remember the first time you were introduced to that brand because it's always been a part of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Powerful, powerful. Love it, love it, love it. This is Miss Sheila Butler on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage, spilling the tea on branding, loyalty, and taking your marketing strategy to the next level and upping your game. Miss Sheila, help us. I want to start a brand today. I never did it before. I don't have a brand before, but my brand, I want to start one. Where should I start for the beginner level entrepreneur who's starting a company or considering starting a company? What factors, some key takeaways I should be considering when developing my brand in the beginning?
Okay, so I created a proprietary branding process about 20 years ago when I had a friend who bought a company and he's like, hey, can you help me with my website? And I go, sure, okay, great. He goes, okay, can you just write it? I go, well, I don't know anything about like what are you selling? Who are your customers? Who are you competing against? What other alternatives do your customers have if they don't hire you? What are you promising if they hire you? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my God. So I took what I learned at Disney and at this tech startup, and I thought, I'm just going to build out a framework. I had no idea that frankly would be the lead service for my business, Butler Marketing Group, all these years later. So here's where I start. I start first with what is the competitive framework? And you could just start with a blank sheet of paper and draw an X and a Y axis. You got 4 quadrants and decide what's the space that I want to play in and who are the competitors. If someone doesn't come to me, where else might they be going to have their needs fulfilled? So you start with the competitive framework. And by the way, the hardest thing is staring at a blank sheet of paper and trying to figure out what to put on the X and Y axes and the far bounds. Then once you figure that out, you figure out who is my competition and who's not my competition, because they do things that I do, or they offer products that are similar to what I want to offer versus very different than what I want to be. Then I start with things like the core equities. So what do I do? What services and products do I provide to people? And then what's the key benefit? Why should people care? What's in it for them? How does the product or service make things better for them, solve a challenge for them, etc.? And then we get into things like, what's the personality of the brand? If it had a voice, if you could see it, touch it, and see it move, what would that be? Your brand is a living, breathing thing, and either you control the brand and you tell people what you're all about, or people will just make up their own assumptions, and that's not what you want them to do. So you create a personality, a style, tone, and voice around it, and that informs your colors, your typography, your logo selection, your company name, all these different things. And then you think about what's the core identity? What are the four things that I want to be known for? They can be thought of as brand pillars or reasons to believe what you're going to promise someone if they get your product or your service or work with your company. So that's the brand promise. And then I have, what's the end effect for someone? If someone buys into that promise, what's really in it for them? How does it make them better? How does it help their business grow? And then the last piece is the point of difference. So at the end of the day, what makes me different than everything else in the marketplace? And I take all those things and I roll that into what I call a brand platform. And that's your strategic statement of value, which is a whole paragraph that explains everything, including those four reasons to believe, your core identity. And it's in the voice of your brand personality. And then you pare that down to a positioning statement, and even shorter, a 10-second elevator pitch. Because I don't know about most people, but elevators for me aren't 3 minutes long. Tell your story about how I went to college and I started this and what. That's a really long elevator. No, it's 10 seconds. That's all you got. And then you've got these messaging narratives that describe your brand and bring those four core identities to life. And you weave that all together, and that's your messaging platform to explain what you're all about, what makes you special, what are you promising people when they work with you or buy your product, enjoy your service, all those things. That's where I would start. It's not the easiest thing to do, but that's around, so I can help brands do that. And I help brands if they're a brand new brand. I do personal branding for people when they're shifting their careers. I branded nonprofit, branded products, and then often I work with companies like that are in private equity to where they're bringing different companies together and they need to create this whole new brand and re-explain themselves.
That's huge. I never understood that branding, and thank you for breaking that down so delicately. I never understood that matching colors and color schemes were important to a brand. That was so mind blowing for me when I heard Dave Ramsey said, "Yes, I have a coordinator who sets my outfits for the event, and that's what I wear." And I
Yeah.
said, Is it that micro? Is
Yeah.
it that detailed to branding?"
Yeah. Even just selecting the right font.
Wow.
Yeah.
Woo! The right font. I
Yeah.
need Courier New or Times New Roman. Like,
Right? There are a gazillion different fonts, right? So it's not just about the words. It's about when someone visually sees your brand, what associations do you want them to have with that? So there's a reason why you picked this font and not cursive for your logo.
that's true.
Right?
Uh, that's true. I wanted it to not be an eyesore.
And but the colors are rich and vibrant.
Yes.
They're classy, they're classic,
Yes.
right? But it's easy to read as a font as well, right?
Yes.
It works well digitally as well as in print. All these things are things you got to think about. And what's interesting to me is that I get asked this a lot. They're like, "Why is brand strategy so important?" And I go, "Because that is the foundation. Otherwise, if you skip all that, people when they skip and go to the sexy piece, what should I name it? What's my tagline? Let's create a logo." I'm like, "Well, but it needs to stand for something. So what do you want to be communicating? You got to do the strategy work first."
That's so true. So true. How do so I done the work. The company, the business, the person, the individual. 'Cause you do individual branding as well, but the individual does the work. How do you future proof that loyalty strategy and that branding strategy, right? Because in an ever changing world, ever changing market, it shifts. Should my brand shift as the market shifts, or should is it set it and forget it?
So it's somewhere in between. So when
Okay.
I work with people for developing their brand, it's typically thinking about a 3-year life cycle for the brand. And often that may be my brand is here, but I wanted to get it to here. And so, what are the things in the story narrative that I need to explain to shift a brand perception of the product, the person, even, right? So, that's one piece of it. The second piece is the repetition. So think about how many times you need to hear something before it really sinks in and you're able to repeat it yourself. So an unaided message, right? As they would call it in market research. So you have to be consistent once you define that brand strategy and your messaging and even your colors and your typography, et cetera. You have to be extremely consistent in all of your marketing. So I would imagine, regardless of where I looked, I would see very consistent marketing in your podcast. And so that helps me as a consumer find more recognition more quickly the more times I see that. And then I start to associate your podcast with certain values that you've then communicated in your messaging. So it's not set it and forget it, because your brand needs to evolve over time as you evolve with either your service offerings, you have new products, you merge with another company, you're shifting what you want your podcast to be. So it still needs to evolve with you, but you can't be changing it all the time. You can't be throwing out new messaging all the time and then think that what you originally told someone is going to stick.
Absolutely. That's powerful. Woo! I love this so much. This is so good. This is so good. This is so good. What are so we're I don't want to give people the delusion that this is all magical and woo-fa. What are some branding faux pas that people should stay away from? What are the don'ts? What are the things that people should be actively avoiding? Here's one. I'll share one that
Okay.
I've seen constantly, and it didn't pay off for this lady. We commonly put our face on the door. We want to put our full name, Marcus Norman, company, insert company name. I think that's a faux pas. You should not associate yourself unless you're Oprah Winfrey, right? There's the Oprah Winfrey's of the world who her name is a brand, right? And she needs to trademark that and all of that. But for the I not everyone needs to do that. Not everyone needs to, especially if you're thinking legacy. I want this brand to exist well past me. So I think that's a mistake when people put their full name,
Mhm.
Marcus Norman's podcast. That's a mistake because I'm not going to live forever. And my child may have a different name. My child may have a different surname. My daughter may have a different surname. That's a mistake, I feel. Can you speak to legacy branding and what not to do with branding?
So, well, when I first heard the question of what not to do in branding, I'm adverse to negativity and so forth. So when I hear a brand speak in a negative tone, put their competitors down, etc., that's just for me something that I just run away from, because that doesn't align with my values. Another thing is visually, if the font is if so like let's say your font was very difficult to read, be like, wait, why am I working so hard to do this? Why can't you make it easier for me? So they're basic things like that. When I think about the legacy and heritage of a brand, I was actually in a conversation recently and they were debating, do you put your name in the company name, and the pros and cons of that. So there are certain instances to where, I put my last name in the name of my company. And when people meet Butler Marketing Group, I introduce them to my team. I call them Avengers because they're not full time. I Avengers assemble based upon the project and the need that my clients have. That I have an Avengers business model. And so I bring people in, and so they meet Butler Marketing Group. They meet my subcontractors that I brought in because of their level of expertise in lead generation, email campaigns, content strategy, market research, etc. There's another angle to think about. If you associate your name with the business and you eventually think you want to spin that off and sell it, then people, one, are confused because you're no longer associated with the name of the company because you've sold it. So where's that person? And there's another element around the fact that there's an expectation that they're always interacting with the owner of the business and no one else would do. So you got to play all sides out in general. For me, I was comfortable with Butler Marketing Group, but there may be other people that say, I want a more abstract type of name or a mashup of two different words that becomes this new word, like a Google. What was a Google back then? Because the domain is available. You came up with something and no one owns it. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for that. Thank you for feeling that through with me and talking me off the ledge, because again, I know I know it's all not rainbows, right? There are some mistakes that brands have made. And so that is why they need to get with you and your team and work it out and figure out what is it. Because I'm sure that's a very early on question. What is the goal, right? What is the goal of this brand that you're trying to set up? And so you'll set that up and coordinate with them accordingly and say, okay, based off of what you told me, this is the structure. This is
Yes.
what we should go with.
Yes.
So
I'm gonna yes and to that, right? So yes and to build upon. I love the fact that you mentioned legacy. So when I was using my own branding process on myself when I was starting out my business, I had written down a brand promise and I thought, you know what, it's not sitting right with me. I think that's exactly what I'm promising if people hire me for loyalty work, partnership work, marketing strategy, branding, etc., or even fractional CMO work. And then about 2 weeks later, I was really kind of sitting still and it hit me. And I was like, oh my God, yes, this is exactly what it is. I develop marketing that leaves a legacy. I know that the branding work, the marketing strategy work that I'm doing for companies and individuals will live far beyond me working with them as a client. And I love that. And the end effect for my clients, when I think about if they buy into that promise, is that they grow, evolve, and transform. That's why else would you pay for marketing if you're not going to do that? Right.
that's true. That's true. Why else would you do it? I think people get they like you said, people skip, right? They skip all of this stuff, the important stuff, and they jump right to the fun stuff, right? Well, let me get a catchy name, right? Let me get this, let me get that. And they don't do the research. I had another guest who was specialist in copywriting
Mhm.
and a lawyer, and they spoke to that, right? You jumped straight into the fun stuff and came up with a name and realized this name already belongs to someone else. And
Right.
and I feel you would have helped someone catch that very early on. Hey, we can't go with this because Coca-Cola, you can't use Coca-Cola because someone else, or you can't use these phrases, you can't use these terminologies, you can't use these catchphrases.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, that and yes, and again, that or it has an association that you don't want related to your business, right? If it has some sort of connotation, even in another language. I mean, think about the car, was it Nova? Was it a Chevy Nova? And Nova in Spanish means no go. Okay, so I'm gonna buy a car that
Mm.
doesn't run. Is that what I'm doing? If I remember,
But
I'm totally dating myself by bringing this up. Anyway, so yes, you got to think about all that
absolutely.
stuff.
You do. That is huge. What's the boldest marketing move you've ever made? I remember those truth commercials, right? Those truth commercials, and they were intense, right? It was, hey, smoking will do this to you, and then it cuts scene to, this feeble, really wrinkly old man, and he's hooked up to an iron lung, and like that's an intense marketing. That's intense, and but it worked, right? It was
Right.
right on the edge of, listen, we can't show this on television. What's the boldest marketing move you've ever made or advised the client to make or not make?
Okay, so this was in the Wayback Time machine in my career at JP Morgan Chase. And I did not make this decision, but I was in the room as one of the people voting on this decision. Okay. So we were tasked by our CEO, Jamie Dimon, to beat American Express, steal customer share and dollars spent on American Express credit cards by having a competitor card, a high end credit card. And so we were launching what is now known as Chase Sapphire Reserve. So very high end card, which normally it's hard to go from like a annual fee of like 100 or 150 to like way up into like the 400, 500, etc.
I tried to get one.
Okay. Okay. And so then we were packing it full of all these benefits. And we were sitting in the room saying, okay, the goal is to get X number of thousand card members in the first 12 months of the launch. And so what do we need to do? And typically at the time, I think credit card offers were around like 50 or 60,000 points. So the president of the, right, it's a lot of points. So the president of the proprietary business says to us in the room, what do you think if we throw out 100,000 points? We're like, wow, that is rich. She's like, but only for a short amount of time, just as like the introductory offer. We'll make a big splash in the marketplace. We'll get a lot of attention and eyeballs in the press. And so we can just do that for a limited amount of time. What do you think? And we're all like, yeah, let's go for it, right? Richest offer ever. And so there was also a decision, by the way, at the time by the brand team on how they wanted to package the card when someone receives it. So rather than a white envelope that's very nondescript, you kind of feel and you're like, oh, my card arrived. They decided to hand pack in these beautiful boxes with ribbon and whatever the credit card. And so you open this beautiful box and you saw this beautiful brochure with all the information about your card. Okay. So fast forward to we launched the card. In the first 2.5 weeks, we met the goal of how many people we wanted to book in 1 year. 1 year. So we booked 100,000 card members in the first 2.5-ish weeks of the card. Well, the brand team, when they made the decision about hand packaging the products, didn't expect 100,000 people to apply for the card and all need to get their cards within 30 days of being approved. And they could only package 5,000 boxes every day. So the math wasn't mathing.
At all. At all.
Not at all. So great idea. It pushed the entire marketplace of credit cards into these ultra rich offers. It was a huge success for Chase, but also a big misstep for a while because they didn't have enough even the metal cards. So they'd send people plastics, like a normal plastic card, and then replace it when they got the metal cards in, more metal. So all these different things. So there's a way that you can go big as a brand. You also need to think it through on every single element around that brand to operationalize it for it to be successful. And by the way, this is like literally a Harvard business case study that people discuss in class.
This is good. That is a huge good. And I think, I don't know, I guess, how do you plan for that, right? Do you sit, what should have been discussed? What was the fix for that? Should have been discussed. Hey, what if we get more cars in demand? That never came up in the conversation?
We never thought that we were going to have 100,000 people get the card in that amount of time. Because remember, we had never gone that high up in the marketplace into such a high fee card.
Was it the benefits and perks that y'all had jam packed? My disclaimer, y'all, I tried to get the card. Was it all the perks and benefits in the card that caused that influx? do you think?
What was the rich offer, right? Because the acquisition premium says do it now versus I can wait for later because the product's always going to be there. The other thing that ended up changing, it was we launched the product in, I believe, August, and there was a travel credit for $300 that was calendar based. So you're paying this. So by the way, you're paying this fee, and I forget what it was originally. Let's call it $495 or something. So when I see I'm paying $495, but I get TSA pre-check and I get this $300 travel credit, oh, I get my money back, right? I'm pretty much there. Okay, great. So what happened was roll into January and people start getting the travel credit again because the travel credit was automatic as long as you made the purchase of like your airfare, your hotel, your rent a car on the card. So it just automatically triggered the $300. So they ended up having to change that benefit from calendar based to a rolling 12-month base because they didn't expect that everybody would hit the travel credit of 300 right away and then another 300 in January or February. So then suddenly the cost of the benefit was far richer than what you were planning on. Again, when you did the math. So it also says you got to be really tight on the cost of your benefits and your P&L and map out the expected behaviors to make sure that you're not going to be upside down from a benefit perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They didn't do the math, y'all. Hey, that's why we have masterminds. That's why we have these groups, and that's why Ms. Butler has the trade secrets and the inside secrets to these boardrooms and these meetings, right? To find out, hey, what have we done? What have we made a mistake? What have we messed up? What can we improve? What can we fix? So
learn through this, right? Yes.
Absolutely. And as big as JP Morgan is, that's unique. That's unique to hear that even as big as they are, hey, we messed this up and we learn from it.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation and someone said, well, we need to change it to the rolling 12 months, but there was some tech work involved in order to switch it because the tech was programmed for calendar based. So you have to change the back end. But I remember someone saying, well, because people are gaming the product. And I go, no, they're not gaming. They're using it as it was built. So there's no, inappropriate behavior on the consumer. They're just savvy enough to realize that they're getting a great deal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The consumer is smarter than you think. That's why and it's nothing illegal. It's nothing nefarious here. They're doing it exactly as designed.
As it was designed. Exactly.
Absolutely. Do you incorporate any AI? AI is a buzzword today. AI and artificial intelligence and blockchain, ChatGPT, all the buzzwords. How is AI reshaping loyalty programs and customer engagement from the perspective of how you see it?
It's incredible. Well, so actually, I'm gonna spin this around for the entrepreneurs listening. So if you're not using AI, you got to use it because your competitors are, your customers are, and you will be left behind. So let's just put that out there. So get on the bus. 2, test it. You don't necessarily go to class if you want, but just start by starting. Just start using it and getting into it and understanding all the things that it can do for you. As a solopreneur, I cannot even imagine how I would have survived my first 2 years with my company and pumping out the amount of work that I do for clients without AI being in existence. It is it's an augmenter to the work that I'm doing to make this better, think this through, poke holes in this. It's throw another set of eyes on something, seeing the blind spots. It's an accelerant for my work on being more efficient and how I get the work done. I'm able to create bots in the brand style, tone, and voice for my customers and write content faster for them and smarter for them. All these different things because AI is in existence. So, like I said, if you haven't started it, just start somewhere.
Absolutely. Get started. Get started today. Get started today. What should what should a company budget for a good CMO or a good brand strategist? What should they budget and allocate towards a good quality brand strategy?
I think every business is different in terms of that. Actually, one of my specialties is being a fractional chief marketing officer for businesses. So fractional meaning part-time. And that engagement will look different, whether or not it's a 6-month assignment or a longer engagement. and they may want me 5 hours a week or 40 hours in a month. And then really understanding what are they trying to drive in their business. I would say if you're a bank of less than 2 billion in assets, you don't need a full-time CMO. You could have a fractional. If you're a business, depending upon where you are with your business, most of them don't need a fraction. They don't need a full-time CMO, but they do need someone who can come in, set the marketing North Star that aligns with the business objectives and goals. What's the marketing roadmap that will get to the delivery of those goals and even exceed those goals? What's the right messaging strategy? What's the right balance of marketing investment across your owned, earned, and paid channels? Aligning the team with the talent that you need, and making sure that people have the right skills, and that they work efficiently by having the right processes. All these different things. That's why you want a fractional to come in. You sort of just parachute into the C-suite and work alongside them. And then while you're working with the team, you're upskilling them, you're mentoring them, you're training them, you're coaching them so they really understand what is strategy, and not just someone asked me for an email, so I wrote an email because they said they needed it. Well, why did they need the email? I'm not really sure. I didn't really ask. Okay, well, what's the email supposed to do? What do you want customers to do? How does it drive the business forward? How does it deliver on your business objectives? All these different things. That's what a fractional can come in and help you see and do.
Absolutely. So starting budget, like the company's making, maybe I would say like less than 500,000. I should bring in a fractional.
No, I would say you're probably, if you're in the early millions, you probably would start to want to think about at least a fractional, especially if
Absolutely.
you have a younger team.
Absolutely.
And think about it as an investment. So often fractionals on average end up being the price of around, cheaply, 200 an hour ish, maybe up to 400 an hour ish. But as you're thinking about it, you're only getting them for part of the time. So you're not paying for 40 hours a week. They're not sitting on your books as headcount. You're not paying their benefits. You're not matching their retirement, et cetera.
401k.
Right? So you can afford to pay a higher hourly rate or a higher monthly retainer rate because you don't have those other costs that you have for full-time employees.
Absolutely. Do you see this changing in the next 5 years for chief marketing officers, or how do you see the role developing or evolving in the next 5 years? Um,
Well, I think a lot of it depends upon the economy and where businesses are. So I think that a fractional gives you the ability to dial up or down not only the skills, but the level of integration that you need that CMO to have within your business, and for a set period of time, when you're at an inflection point, when you're at a growth point, when you're at a stagnation point. I think a lot of it also depends upon the economy and whether or not we're in a recession or something like that. There's a big sensitivity to hiring people and having that commitment of taking on more full-time people. There's a big sensitivity to how big are our marketing teams, how much are we spending on human resources and payroll. And a fractional gives you the ability to find talent and solutions in a different way that is far less than permanent.
that's right. That's true. Do you think social media plays a big factor into my brand? Should I or should I not worry about it? Social media is that's a large contributing factor.
You gotta play up every channel that is in your control, right? So when I think about owned channels, it could be your mobile app, your website, anything else that is a controllable channel, 100% owned by you. I think earned is social media, and understanding what does Facebook do better than Instagram, what does Instagram do better than, how is LinkedIn necessary, how is TikTok necessary. Earned can also be press releases and being interviewed by the media and getting your name and your brand and your thought leadership out there. It could be speaking engagements. Paid channels can be paid search, paid social, etc. You got to fire up on all the cylinders. And normally, if you haven't been doing paid, or if you've been doing paid and you don't understand the ROI and what you're really getting for it, dial that back. Just focus on your owned and your earned channels really be crystal clear on the KPIs and have a dashboard and say, this is what I think it's going to do. This is what it did. I compared it to last year. Here's my variance. Here's whether or not it moved my business forward or not. All those different things, have the discipline. And then that's where you marry your marketing roadmap. That's your 52 weeks of content. And what am I going to say in all these channels at the right time for my business? And then measuring against that. And then you figure out what works and what doesn't. Keep doing the stuff that works. And then say, how can I make it better? Test and optimize against that. And if it's not working, don't do it. The world isn't going to end if you stop one of your social media channels.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Miss Sheila Butler, y'all. Did I mention a pure heart of gold? Miss Butler, what's one question that you wish someone would ask you or have asked you, or you wish someone would ask you that they haven't asked you yet when it comes to branding and marketing that you wish more people knew about? What's that one question I haven't asked you yet that you wish people would ask? And she's allowed to feel through that, y'all. She can feel
I know, right? I don't know. We covered pretty good ground, I would say, the amount of time we've been together. Trying to think, do I have any other like pearls of wisdom? No.
It's a huge nuggets. Huge nuggets. I remember someone telling me books aren't here's my thoughts, and you can correct me on this.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
I feel in my brand I shouldn't write. A lot of people say, Marcus, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. I don't think I should author a book until my brand is at a certain X point. What would you advise to me feeling that way? I don't think everyone should write a book. I especially when you're starting out.
Well, I think that is a level of effort and dedication that very few people have. And if you're passionate about it, just do it. You can write another book. You will learn more things, right? People modify the books that are out there, and it's like volume 2 or like an updated edition. So nothing's permanent in that way. Your thinking is always evolving based upon conversations like this, right? So just do it. I actually dove into the podcast space recently. So I have a show called Marketing Over Bourbon, in which I interview people who also, like me, worked at Disney. We talk about their career, their life lessons learned. We talk about leadership and marketing and branding, all while we're sipping whatever the bourbon is that they requested that I have. And it's filmed in a TV production studio in the Orlando area. And I'm learning all sorts of things and having these amazing conversations. And I don't know what the show is going to look like in a couple years. For me, the show and your podcast is really just another medium for what a book would be.
That's fair. That's fair. This has been an incredible conversation. Miss Butler, thank you. I want to say this to you publicly. Thank you for what you do.
It's so sweet. Thank you so much. And love being on your show. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love having you. This was great. This is epic. Never quit. We need you. Don't ever quit. This is powerful. Well, y'all, Miss Butler has to go. One more nugget. If you were talking to that young man, that young girl in the audience who was, their back is against the wall and they just weren't sure after watching this whole episode, what was that one nugget you would have in getting started to that young boy, that young girl, deciding on whether they should take their brand to the next level?
Well, so 2 things. One, I mentioned start by starting. Just start. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know what 100 yards looks like in front of you. Just start. You're going to figure it out.
Absolutely. Get started. How can people find you? How can people connect? How can people learn more?
They can go to butlermg.com for Butler Marketing Group. They can find me and connect with me in LinkedIn, Sheila Butler. They can, if they like bourbon or they like Disney or they like to hear marketing stories and leadership stories, they can listen to my podcast where they listen to podcasts or find me on YouTube.
Absolutely. Check her out, y'all. She's absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. This has been incredible. All right, y'all. We are out of time. We got to let this phenomenal woman go. She has many more lives to change and many more corporations to take to the next level and impact. Like we end every show. Take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible Sheila Butler. Signing off. Love you guys. Bye.